Just testing the new mics here. Can you guys hear me, Bob? Through the mics, are these working?
Yeah, I can hear you, Dan.
Thank you.
And yeah, so my trip was canceled, so I'm able to join the meeting today.
Very good. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Good morning, Dan. This is Regina joining by cell phone, and I can hear you as well.
Thank you.
All right.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the January 23rd, 2025 Landmarks Commission meeting. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio Open Meeting Law and Section 101.021 of the Codified Ordinance of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the Cleveland City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by roll call vote. Recusal from any case due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the beginning of the presentation. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, virtual attendants will use the raised hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile versions and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking the raised hand icon again and muting your microphone. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activities are being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through the proper channels have been considered. Proper channels for comments are sending an email to the email address landmarks@clevelandohio.gov and with a comment or letter, calling and or leaving a message at 216-664-2532, or sending a letter or dropping off comments at City Hall located at 601 Lakeside Avenue, Suite 519. Communications with members of this body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by the stated deadline are collected by Landmark staff and disseminated to the commission members prior to the scheduled meeting. Mr. Nelson?
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. To go over the meeting rules and procedures, the chair will call each agenda item, and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, the chair will ask Landmark staff to summarize design review committee recommendations and any public comments received. The deadline for public comment is noon on the Tuesday prior to any regularly scheduled Cleveland Landmarks Commission meeting. Any received comments are distributed to commission members prior to the meeting. Staff will also identify any members of the public present and scheduled to speak. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing public comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak to the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff. The commission will begin deliberations and project review, and any commission member except the chair may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called.
We'd like to call the January 25th, 2025 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. Mr. Mustin, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Dryer?
Here.
Mr. Dilick? Here. Interim Director Fields? Councilmember Gray? Mr. Lozier?
Here.
Mr. Sambry?
Here.
Mr. Strickland?
Here.
Mr. Trosick?
Here.
Dr. Williams?
Here.
And Ms. Trott?
Here.
Madam Chair, we do have quorum. Also like to note that we have Carl Brunges, Jessica Beam, and myself present from Landmark staff.
Excellent. We'll begin with our certificates of appropriateness. We'd like to call the first applicant forward to state your name and tell us about your project. But before we do that, we need a motion to untable this case.
I'll move to on table.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second.
All right, we have multiple seconds. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Mustin, please call roll.
And Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Dryer?
Yes.
Mr. Dilick?
Yes.
Mr. Lozier?
Yes.
Mr. Sambry?
Yes.
Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
Mr. Trosick?
Yes.
Dr. Williams?
Yes.
And Ms. Trott?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
All right, excellent. Then we will begin with the first applicant located at 5810 Franklin Boulevard, Cleveland, Ohio, window replacement. Yes, you're welcome.
Yeah, good. You just gotta press the red button so the mic turns on when you want to talk. It's a new system. There.
Hello, how are we doing, everybody, this morning? So my name is Josh Walczek. I'm an outside field rep for Universal Windows Direct. What we are proposing is to do 4 vinyl custom tailored fit windows right off of Franklin Boulevard. That a little closer. Good.
That was me. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. A little bit about the history of Universal Windows Direct. It is a hometown company. 2 guys from the west side of Cleveland near Fairview Park, Michael Sturmack and William Barr, both started it back in 2002. And we are one of the largest window replacements in the entire country, but mainly focus in like Ohio, PA, Kentucky. And we do provide all of our new customers with a true lifetime warranty. So if there's any problems, broken glass, condensation, mold, mildew, allergens, that could be very uncomfortable or unhealthy for a new customer, Universal Windows Direct would back it. What we're proposing for this project is we would be replacing 4 existing windows. They are located on the 2nd floor of the hallway of this multi-unit property. owned by Neil Farrell, and 2 windows in one of his tenants right there on the right-hand side on the second floor. They would be matched existing with the same exterior color and capping and the exact sizing. So we do order the windows down to 1/8 of an inch for a tailored fit, custom fit window. So it would not change the look. Here are a couple examples of a couple vinyl replacement windows, depending on what type of facade or exterior, type of siding or stone that they have. We do custom performance coil, so depending on how wide that aluminum capping needs to be, we would actually, bend it, appropriately for each and every single window. So as you see there on the left, it was a vinyl, and then the one on the right was a stone. I believe we've already kind of gone over this, but I did, have a 3D model that I wanted to, briefly explain. It would just be those 4 windows on that front facade, 2 in one of the tenants in the property, and then 2 in the hallway of the second floor. The tenant is currently, experiencing a lot of drafts, especially in this cold weather. They're the old aluminum windows, so the owner of the property, Neil, is just trying to make it more comfortable, for one of his tenants that have been living there for 15 to 20 years. Okay. And this is kind of just a 3D model of like some new technology, but it'd just be those 2 windows on the front facade there, on the second floor, and then the 2 underneath it from that back storm door there, if you look. Thank you very much for allowing us to, participate.
All right, thank you for the presentation.
Yep.
We will then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Before we get into this, I'm sorry, I skipped right over. Landmark staff recommendation, sorry. I'm used to having it in front of me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I give the staff recommendation, I think we need to ask a couple more follow-up questions. Since I can't find any record of any exterior work being done on this property through this ownership's period, could you tell me how many windows are on the building and how many of them are still original? Have any been replaced?
So none of them have been replaced. I can look at the measure sheet from the 3D model and tally up exactly how many, but we're just proposing those 4.
But we know that you've surveyed the entire building, correct?
So that's just to get exact measurements, just so we have it on our record, but
But-
we're just doing.
It all seems to be original windows. Nothing has been
Correct.
changed at all. Okay. And you wouldn't have any other, okay. So, thank you. That helps. Since we consider each project on a case-by-case basis, we are considering this proposal for this building and not what has been completed on other buildings, because those got brought up in our last meeting. You were not here for that, so you probably didn't hear some of that conversation that went on. So we have to answer some questions that came up. Regarding, because we had some issues about how long our process takes, and something I like to say is that sometimes our design review process moves at the speed of the applicant. Permit application for this project was assigned to staff on October 2nd. It was responded to immediately, and the standard instructions for the process and needed information were sent via email. There was email correspondence with Universal Windows Direct regarding the design review process and requirements in November and December. A final presentation was not received by our office until December 11th. When it was scheduled for the next available local committee meeting on December 18th. Staff agrees with the comments made by the local committee and notes that there should be a comprehensive plan for the front of the building. We also feel that vinyl windows on the front are not appropriate, which is in keeping with our longstanding procedures and our window policy. Ownership will likely have the opportunity to use the proposed product on the sides and the rear of the building. We would recommend a window sealing kit as a temporary measure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that summary. We will now open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Who would like to start us off? I'd ask somebody who was here at the last presentation. I was not here to start us off here, so if there's,
Michelle, have their hands up.
oh, thank you. Michelle? Ms. Anderson?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to clarify the applicant, when he was at the last meeting, said that three of the windows were in the unit occupied by the tenant, which were the ones in that little porch area. And I would imagine the two windows on the left, on the face of the building, would probably be the window on the right-hand side. Is that the case, or are the two windows on the face of the building to the left in a hallway area?
So yeah, that is on the second hallway of the second floor. And then if you look on the right-hand side of the porch, there's two more windows. So it'd be a total of 4 replacement windows in that area.
Okay. So the windows on the porch are the ones that are in the tenant's unit. I bring this up because the owner says the original windows are creating a hardship for this tenant, that it's too cold and drafty, and his bills are too high.
Correct.
So that's why I'm bringing.
Yeah. So
Those are that are in his unit.
correct. Yes.
All right. Those are my questions for now.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Strickland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was involved with the first presentation as well. And it was explained that this particular manufacturer for this final window does provide a lifetime warranty, which I think might be somewhat unique and perhaps represent a higher quality product in terms of a vinyl window. So in this particular case, given the specific circumstances for this property owner and the tenant, I would be in favor of utilizing the vinyl windows. And I understand that this is the entire scope for this project that's being presented. And I would not hold the owner to presenting a complete comprehensive replacement survey at this time. I don't think that's required. That could be withheld until he decides to replace additional windows on the home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Mr. Tarasik?
Thank you, Madam. And I think taking off of Ms. comment, I wasn't a comment, but mine kind of piggybacks on that a little bit. We did talk about a comprehensive plan the last time that we were here, I believe. And I agree with Mr. Strickland that this should not be held up for lack thereof. But I do have a question. Just I think Carl had asked, I'm not sure the gentleman here on behalf of Universal Windows was able to give an answer. How many windows are there on this particular project? And if you could just briefly give us an idea of what the condition are of those, so that we have an idea of whether we're going to be back here within a week or a year, or just to the best of your ability, what the current condition of those other windows are, and about how many more there are.
Yeah, so currently we're doing 4 replacement windows, 2 in the hallway, 2 in the tenant's building, right? They're the original.
3 in the apartment.
3 in the apartment. So one of them,
One is in the apartment and the other 2 are in the apartment. The last one, the farthest one, is in the hallway, right outside the apartment. But there's 3 in the apartment itself.
So the 2 on the porch.
If I can just interrupt, sir, could you just identify yourself for the record, just so we know who you are?
My first name is Neil, my last is Farrell, and I own the apartment. I own this place. I've owned it since 1988. I own a lot of other places in the city of Cleveland also.
So 3, to answer your question, there's 3 in the tenant's building. So like the 2 circles in the red, right? The one on the farthest left is in the hallway on the second floor of the building.
That's right.
Then the one on the right-hand side and the 2 underneath the porch on the second floor are all in this tenant's unit. And And he's expressing that they're very drafty, he can't open them. He's being very cold. He has high energy bills that he can't really, afford at this time, right? And he's a long-term tenant for Mr. Farrell. So at this time, what we're proposing is these just, 4 windows, to help out with the tenant itself. He can fully be more comfortable, year round.
The house was
I
built in
understand.
the house was built in
No,
1927. Those are the original windows. It's like riding around today in a 1927 automobile. I wanted 2025 for this gentleman, for my long-term
I-
tenant. He's also Section 8 tenant.
I understand all of that, gentlemen. I think my question more specifically was, and I think Mr. Bunges had the same question. How many windows total are there? Not this project, on the property itself. How many total windows are there? And in general, what's the condition of those? Just so that we have an idea of whether we're going to be back here sooner or later to replace the additional windows.
They're
my
all
question.
original.
Yep, I'm
New
counting
mic
them up
system.
right now.
Do you have, are there 30 windows
I
within the
never counted
property?
them.
So I'm counting them
And
right
that's
now.
what
One
he's figuring
second.
out. And then is there do you foresee replacing more in the near
Of
future?
course.
So I think
But
that's,
these are the ones that I want done now because of my tenants. Ma'am, I don't pay the electric or the gas bill. He does. I'm looking out for his better interests,
Mhm.
not my own, because it doesn't matter to me. I don't pay the utilities.
understand. We're just trying to understand the full scope, and I wasn't here last meeting, so forgive me if some redundant questions are coming up. It's just to
No,
help
that's
me
okay.
understand. So we just want to understand your full vision for this property, and if it is to replace
45. So there's 45 total on the property.
45 on the property, that's
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Other questions and comments? Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This question is really for the Landmark staff. If we were to approve the replacement of these windows with the vinyl windows, does that mean that the vinyl would be permitted in perpetuity? In other words, if the exterior was being redone and those other windows are going to be replaced, would and they come before this body, would we be allowed to reverse this decision at a future date?
Yeah, so our window replacement policy allows for the use of vinyl on the sides and rear of the property. So they could pull permit to change those windows out without having to go through the design review process. If in the future they wanted to change out the other 7 windows on the front of this property, and they wanted to use vinyl, then they would have to go back through the design review process and get your guys' approval for that. If they chose to use aluminum clad wood or fiberglass or an upgraded material on the front in the future, we could handle that administratively. But essentially, once these windows are done, I wouldn't anticipate switching them out again in the next few years.
Thanks.
I agree that probably they're going to be there for a while, but let's say, 15 years from now, somebody decides to, restore the exterior. Would they be permitted to keep, or let's say, would they be permitted to swap out these old vinyl windows with a newer vinyl window because the vinyl was already there? And this is kind of based on something that happened last week. I think it was 5811 Detroit. The vinyl was there, so we ended up allowing vinyl to be replaced with vinyl.
That would be up to the commission in 15, 20 years, I guess.
I'll be dead by then.
They would make the determination as to whether that was an appropriate action or not. But like you said last week, this commission made that determination on another property. So I think once there is vinyl on the property, there tends to be a feeling of more flexibility because in a way the damage to the historic material is already done. So that's kind of how it is right now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Musson. I appreciate that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Tarasik, you still have your hand up. Do you have additional question?
I have an additional comment, I guess, if I may. The reason I asked about the additional windows in the project is I think kind of along the lines of where Ms. Anderson was going with this. Not only, and I do recall the comment that was made that if the windows were not original, if they had already been replaced with vinyl, and I think my understanding was if it was already vinyl, then there would be a greater hood of replacing the vinyl with the vinyl had these been replaced earlier. But I guess my comment is with the other windows on the front facade of this property, if this is permitted, and I'm not saying which way I prefer right now, but if this is permitted with these vinyl windows, the next time the applicant were to come to replace any additional windows on the front facade, as long as Universal Direct is being used, and I understand each project, we judge each project on its own, but it would seem it would set, I use this word lightly, a precedent with this project itself, that additional windows on the front facade would then be permitted to be replaced with vinyl as well. And then the other comment is, and I respect Mr. Strickland's comment about making exceptions, if you will, or considerations that these windows are of a higher quality, that they are, and I'm paraphrasing Mr. Strickland, but that they do have a lifetime warranty. That should be an additional consideration. Are we then, and again, I use the word lightly, setting a precedent that any other projects that come before us that use Universal Direct or have a lifetime guarantee for a front or for vinyl on the front facade, that the argument can be made to us that permitted this project to do it to other similar projects, and just a comment of some concerns that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tarasik. Ms. Strickland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I was just going to reiterate that one of my prime considerations for issuing my approval on this project is that I was convinced, since it was a lifetime guaranteed product, that it was of a higher quality. And I would make that a stipulation as part of the motion as to why I would vote in favor of it. And then in the future, if a lesser quality vinyl window was proposed for the front, I would be opposed to that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Mr. Tarasik?
I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty with the raise hand, lower hand. I think it's down now. I don't have an additional comment. Thank you.
It is down. Thank you. Mr. Dulick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair to the applicant, these all appear to be basically 1/1 double hung windows,
double
the
hung,
existing,
yeah.
they just happen to be made out of wood,
Yes,
correct?
they're the original.
Right, understood. But are there windows on this building that have divided lights, mullions,
I don't
things
understand
like
the
that?
question.
So like what he's saying is like the lines, they're called grills or muttons that's in between the panes. On this certain property, there's not. I know a bunch
Oh,
of
no.
houses.
I'm talking
in
about
this
the
area.
original windows. Are there original windows that have a distinctive historical character? They're
No,
just
not at all.
basic
Correct, so
double
there's
hung
none on these.
window.
He offered me that where I could have like individual panes, this plastic. I said, no, I want it to look exactly like what's up there. And you won't know the difference unless you took a huge ladder, climbed up there,
Mhm.
had the ladder up against the house and actually touched the window. It's gonna be the same.
No, thank you. I guess, and I appreciate the clarification on that, because I think what we're talking about in the spirit of the staff comments, and I think trying to always further our own understanding as a commission, will the approval of a change in material from wood to vinyl. It will obviously increase the performance, as is proven by the lifetime guarantee, but will it alter the visual historic character if it's wood versus vinyl? It's a question more for my fellow commission members than anything. And I think it's just maybe really furthering what Mr. Strickland, the issue Mr. Strickland has brought up, but putting it in the context of the historic character. Would you know? It's a question that if any of my, I appreciate any weighing in. I was not part of the original presentation, so forgive me if this was redundant or discussed before. But I think in this particular case, again, case by case by case, I would posit that the historic character would not be substantially altered by changing something that's basically same size, same arrangement, if this were to be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Julick. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My response to Mr. Duick's question here is, I think because the windows in that porch area are recessed and they're not that obvious from the street, they might not change the character. The windows on to the left would change the character if they were replaced with the vinyl. So that's my vision on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Lozier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I have.
That's what's been happening with you and I since you
Councilman Gray,
take off.
can you please mute your mic? Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Lozier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I have two sort of questions or comments. So the first is, I appreciate that the note about the lifetime warranty. I think it might be helpful for this commission, similar to other window manufacturers bringing in upgraded materials and having that be sort of viewable to staff as well as the commission members to understand what the quality of the vinyl window is. So I guess one point I would maybe recommend is that we see a physical sample of what that is so that we can compare it to other, upgraded window materials to see where that really kind of fits in line with things. It's great that there's a lifetime warranty, but and I'm not saying that the windows are not quality, but if we see them and they are don't stand up to, other vinyl windows or other upgraded materials, I might have a different thought about whether or not it's acceptable in this project or not. So I guess one request would be, can we see a physical, get a physical sample of the window and to compare it to other windows that we've seen. The second comment is, while I don't believe in the long run, when all of the windows are replaced, that there will be a material change in appearance. But in the interim, where you have just the upper windows being replaced and the rest of the windows having, being the original, there will be that that difference in visual. So I would also like to at least understand what a longer term strategy for the front facade would be, to understand kind of when those windows might be replaced, and that timeline. So those are my comments.
Does the applicant have a response to that?
The only reason I'm doing this is because of the complaint I'm getting from the second floor tenant. Like I said before, I don't have to do it. I don't pay the utility bills. He does. And I'm trying to help him. He's on a fixed income. As money comes available to me, everybody thinks the landlords are very, very wealthy. It's like making a cake, okay? The batter in the middle goes out to taxes, insurance, maintenance, upkeep. I get to keep what's on the side of the bowl. And I need a big, huge spatula to get that off. And that's what I get. And I'm trying to do what I can possibly do in the best of my ability. And if you look at my home versus the other homes in the area, I think mine is, maybe not outstanding, but it's better than a lot of them.
So just to summarize, right now, you don't have a plan to replace it.
Well,
You just,
as money comes in,
as money comes in.
yeah.
I think we just like to try to put a finite, some guardrails too, so
Next
that
couple of years.
in the next 5 years, if that's your intentions,
that's
to try
fine.
to upgrade the entire front, and minimize any, I'm, the word I'm looking for, but disorganized, and cohesive designs for our houses. That's what we're focused on,
No, I
is,
understand.
the appearance.
When
So
I
thank you for
bought the
that
house
response.
many years ago, there was an elderly man that lived next door.
Mm.
And his house looked like mine. And what they did, I don't know what they did. But, the next thing you know, the siding's coming off the house, you should see the place today. It's terrible. All you have to do is just drive into my driveway and look to the right. The place is terrible. The old man he's gone, then gone. But they should have left it the way it was. It would have looked like my house today. But you just need to go by and look at that place. But he was sold a bill of goods and it's terrible.
Thank you
I
for
did
that.
I did my homework and I did my research. I talked to a lot of people and I come up with the best was Universal Windows. They give you an excellent product. It's made with steel at the bottom and I think it's all around. So it's not just a vinyl window. I have other properties where it's just vinyl. I didn't really do my homework, but I did my homework this time and they give you a superior product. And that's what I'm looking for.
And we appreciate that you did your homework and you're looking to really upgrade your property.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the reason why we're here today, as staff mentioned, is that currently it does not meet our requirements.
Okay.
So that's why we're discussing this.
That's
So
fine.
thank you for that feedback, and we do appreciate that you're investing in your property, because
Yes.
that's what we do need, is people to really make that investment. And we just need to make sure it's the right investment for everyone. So I'm going to keep the moving forward. Mr. Samberry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only comment is that,
Can't
we've
hear.
been tasked. You can't hear me?
A little bit louder, Mr. Samberry, if you don't mind.
My only
Oh.
comment is that, as the commission, we've been tasked to uphold the Secretary of the Interior standards for historic districts. And I think this application is, a pretty simple application of inappropriate window material on a front facade. And I don't see any reason to go away from the historic material. My personal preference would be that the vinyl window is inappropriate for the front facade if they were doing one window. If they were doing all the windows, I don't think it's relevant how many of the windows they're replacing or when they're replacing it. A vinyl window is not appropriate on the front facade in a historic district. I think that we're creating a slippery slope where we're setting a precedent within this neighborhood.
Just leave them the way
to
they are.
do a vinyl window. That would be my personal opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Samberry. As stated, we do approve vinyl windows on sides and rears of
Okay, that's fine.
property. And that's why, once again, we're
That's okay.
discussing, it's just the front that we do have an upgraded
Oh, that's
requirement.
fine.
So,
You
Great.
saved me money.
Mr. Strickland,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to remind my fellow commission members that we do review each project on a case-by-case basis. And we have on several occasions, I was going to say multiple occasions, several occasions, we have approved vinyl windows on the front facade of buildings in a historic district on a case-by-case basis. We did so just the last meeting that we had, where there was a applicant who had several missing windows in a house in a district that was not a very high valued district. And we appreciated that the applicant was restoring the house that he was restoring. And we approved vinyl windows throughout the house in that particular case. So it's not unique for us to approve vinyl on the front facade of a house on a case-by-case basis.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Right. Not seeing any additional comments. I guess I am, as we discussed, I think this is, we value that you want to make the investment. And did you explore any windows besides vinyl for the front? Sorry if you answered this last time.
I did not.
Okay. Did you were you aware of the requirements when you called and talked to them?
I started this project back in summer and here we are in January. And I didn't realize, I never done this before. I mean, I've done a lot of improvements. I've done a lot of things, but nothing like this.
And every area has a different requirement, and this is the reason why we're talking about is because we're in the historic district, and obviously you have very a house that is appreciated for being in this district, and we want to maintain it because you have maintained it. We want to make sure whatever you do is quality for the next decades of time for this house. So right now, I appreciate and want you to make the investment, but I have to personally side with the staff that on the front of the house.
That's fine.
We require fiberglass or a aluminum clad window. On the sides and the rear, we do allow vinyl because we do understand those are an upgraded material. So that's why we try to create boundaries so that we can work with people's budgets and so forth. But right now, I'd have to say my personal opinion is that I do align with staff of that. I feel that an upgraded material would be appropriate in this case. If you were doing the entire facade or other areas, that may change the opinion. But since it's just for windows, since you do have all original windows, and that's which we think is wonderful. We do encourage restoration. We know that that's is also an option for like the front of the for property so that you can maintain the historic character, but then in other areas replace the windows with vinyl to meet the requirements of a more energy efficient, modern 2025 window and so forth. So that is my opinion on this.
So just
case.
keep the 1927 windows.
With work and restoration,
Okay.
Or look at a slightly higher quality or a higher quality, like a fiberglass for those windows.
That's his area. What do
So
you think?
when you say, that's where I'm a little bit confused. When you guys are saying fiberglass, right? There's been new vinyl and like new technology that goes like into like the 100% pure virgin vinyl window, right? So that frame is thinner, right? The most important part of a window nowadays is how that glass is actually sealed, right? And what we use in between the panes of the glass is for our type of climate, right? So 98% of companies in Ohio, right, are using a metal seal, and that metal seal is going to be a great conductor, right? There's going to be drafts, there's going to be condensation within 3 years, and they literally won't last longer than 27 years. And that's why these big box companies are literally only having a warranty for 5 to 15 years on their windows now, right? I'm not mentioning any names, but companies that have been around for 60, 70 plus years, right? Vinyl back in the early 2000s, and yes, I know I'm young, but I've been doing this for about 8 years, right? Is vinyl back in 95 to about 2012, right? They were using a recycled vinyl, right? And that recycled vinyl created a lot of problems in historic areas, not just Cleveland, but nationwide. And it would start to warp, fade, corrode, deteriorate. When the manufacturers actually came out with the TiO2, known as like the full titanium dioxide, it's literally proven and tested through these chambers that are every single window manufacturer nowadays that it's built to last, right? Because the main reasons why people do windows, right, is one, for the overall return on their investment, build more equity, right? So it wouldn't make sense to invest in a window that has a seal that's gonna fail, right? And invest $1,500 more per window, right? A fiberglass window nowadays is literally going for $3,000 a window, right? And that's on the low end. I have quotes to match up that if you guys would like. I can also bring in a small, window sample of our vinyl, right? But I mean, we're just proposing 4 windows, right? And like Mr. Farrell's saying, it's literally for his tenant, right? But, for the future, and we can talk about that later, right? I think when people get a bad juju, right? Or a bad, my parents back in the day didn't even like vinyl, right? But there's new types of vinyl that are out there. There's new technology with how that frame and glass is actually insulated, right? And that's really changing the marketplace, right? With the skyrocket, housing prices, right? So that's the main reason, why people are using us, and for our growth is because of that return, not just for like the warranty, but the warranty, coincides with that.
No, that's helpful to hear all that. And I think that's where staff would love to see your product in either now or in the future, because, how do your profiles match up to the original? Because, very often it changes the look and feel of vinyl. In the past has changed the look and feel of a structure, because the profiles of the vinyl were so thick compared to wood and aluminum that are so thin. And that is in the Secretary of Interior standard, which we have to uphold. That's their view on these
That's
products.
fine with me.
So, all right. So, any other questions and comments from the commission, or would someone like to put forward a motion? Yes,
I
sir.
like what Mr. Strickland, I don't even know the gentleman, but I like what he said, This is the first time I've seen him, but on a case-to-case basis. It seems like right around the corner, that 5811 Detroit, they got their windows. And here I'm trying to help a tenant, and it's, no sweat off me, but he can get them, but I can't. And if you go and look at, I think it's 5806, right next door to me. And it looked just like my home. You should see it today. I don't know what happened, but maybe this old man was in a commission like this and he was sold a bill of goods, and, they took off the aluminum siding. That's an insulation. Why would I take off aluminum siding? I would have higher heating bills. I wouldn't even have tenants. They would leave.
Which we appreciate and understand. As we said, we do look at every case, every structure as a case by case basis. And we appreciate that you're following the requirements, where many people don't. And that is sometimes what the result is that
Do
people
I
don't.
get something for that? Following the requirements?
Our
Thank you.
appreciation.
Thank you, right?
But sorry, I apologize. I have a cold going here. Trying to move things forward. With someone, any additional questions or comments?
Can I say one more thing?
Oh, Ms. Anderson, thank you.
Can this gentleman who I hired, he has a superior product? I was told, 5811, it's the same company. Why can't this gentleman bring in his product? And you guys can at least look at it before you scrap it completely.
If you would like that, we'd be happy.
No, I'm just
No,
throwing that out there.
I mean, it
But
is
if
an
it's,
option.
if we're wasting my time and his time, and you guys already have made up your mind, then it's worthless.
I'm always products are always moving forward. I think it's good to educate us, because there's no way we can know about every product. Even being in the profession, there's no way we can know about
Okay.
every product.
My oldest brother was an officer in the Navy, okay? Much older than me. And when he would go, and he got as high as you could possibly go, he was a chief petty officer. But he would come back to me, and here's what he told me one time from what he learned. He says, you know what? Your mind is like a parachute. It's only good when it's open. And all I'm asking is, if you would just have an open mind, see my gentleman's product, and then let's go from there. I like what Mr. Strickland had to say.
I think that is, we would be definitely be open to reviewing it and looking at it and seeing if it's a product that is worthy of installation. It would require us to table you again, which still keeps you in the process. If that was able to be supplied in the next 2 weeks so that staff could look at the product and understand it, then we could bring you back. It would require you to come back either at
Well, that's
the
okay.
next open.
But if it's gonna waste his time, my time, and your time, forget it. If
But
you
I-
already have your mind made up, which it seems like you do, I don't mean you personally, just as a group.
I am open to looking at the product to see how it will, and the warranty in more detail.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion. Others on, Mr. Strickland, I see your hand is, up again. I'm sorry. Did you have additional feedback?
I was gonna suggest the motion to table this and allow the applicant to provide a sample of the window so that we could look not only at the quality of the manufacturer, but the profiles to ensure that, it's not like a standard vinyl window, that they are the appropriate profiles to match or replicate a typical original wood window. And
Right,
and then give
is that
him a chance to come back and represent.
an official motion?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do you have a second?
A second.
Thank you. We have a second. Any further discussion? Go ahead.
Okay, if it wasn't so cold outside, what I would do is I would haul out the old window and then put them right next to each other.
Well,
But because of it being so cold out, I can't do that.
and that we ask you not to do that
I'm
because
not
that
going
would
to.
cause other issues. But we'd ask, if you could bring a profile of the existing window with the dimensions along with your own dimensions, drawn out so that, in review of the actual product, we can look at the profiles of all jam head, sill, and central mutton so that we understand how it really does compare and the visual impact of your product compared to the existing. So, please don't
Thank you
pull out
very
your
much.
windows.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
we
Appreciate it.
have a motion. Any further discussion from the commission? All right, then we'll have
Do we have?
do we have consent? I'm sorry, I assumed that by your comment. Do we have consent to table you?
Oh, of course.
Okay, so we do
I've
have
been-
consent.
I'm the
That's-
last of 5 boys. Worst things happened to me over the year.
So we just need to make sure that you understand and thank you for giving us
Thank
consent.
you.
So then we'll take a roll call.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Interim Director Fields,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trassick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so we look forward to seeing that additional information and your product. Please coordinate with staff to, bring in the product and they'll circulate and make sure the whole commission, can see the product or either physically or a picture of it. moving
Yeah, so
forward.
I'll actually bring in like a physical model. I'll bring in one of like the old school like vinyl windows from like 10, 20 years ago and ours.
I
just
think
so you guys
just
can
yours
see.
is probably what's needed. We're looking at your product, but more importantly, how your profiles compare to the existing wood window profiles would be helpful for us to understand. So, all right.
What is the date for that? Do you know, or will they email me?
We'll email. Yeah, we can coordinate this afternoon and kind of go through this all again and talk about next dates.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Thank
you
you
guys.
for your-
Yep, we'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right, thank you. Right, we'll now move on to our next applicant, window and roof replacement located at 9400 Clifton Boulevard. Hello?
Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Anan. Not a good voice day due to cold.
I have cough drops if you need.
Yeah, sorry for that. Yeah, kind of rough outside. Thanks for having me. So we are here for 3 items in 9400 Clifton. Is the exterior paint, the windows, and the roof replacement shingles. We already have a meeting last week with the historical district, right, Jessica? Oh, sorry, the design review. This is kind of different than the previous. This work has been done. We had a contractor that did the work without a permit, so we over here trying to reverse what need to be reversed. We went over with the design review on a couple of color samples for the exterior house that we wanted to use for the future paint project. So I think we are kind of leaning toward the olive green, and I can't remember exactly what was the trim color, but as part of the list design review, wanted us to paint it red. The next thing is the windows and the roof. So the facade of the window, if we can scroll up on the design, yeah. So the facade of the window has very old, bad windows before it. This window, with the house when we took over the house, there was some windows without even like windows in them. It was like open house. There was raccoon living out there. It was just a disaster. So right now we replaced all the window around the house, and after last week's design review, they recommended replacing the facade windows, which we have no problem with doing it to maintain the shape and the look of the historical district. Obviously, these front windows on these pictures are vinyl windows with grills. I personally think they look good. I really like them. I know they're not meaning the area look maybe or some houses on the street. So, and just in case we do need to replace them, this is what we're here for. And the other item is the roof. The roof is just a clear replacement of asphalt shingles with asphalt shingles. So.
So anything additional to your presentation, or is that?
Yes, one more thing is we do have skylights on the front of the windows. There's 2 skylights in front of the house. There are wooden windows from the inside and aluminum on the outside, I think. I would love to keep them. I think they look great. The design review recommend replacing them, which I don't understand why. I mean, we're over here trying to maybe replace the facade windows that they were already vinyl. But again, I mean, what's necessary to bring this project into the final step.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. We'll then move on to Design Review Advisory Committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Historic West Cleveland Design Review Advisory Committee on January 15th. They talked a lot about the windows that were installed, and the original windows on the home on the front facade did not have grids and were double hung on the second floor and cottage sash on the first floor. And so there's a lot of discussion about matching the original configuration and grids, especially on that front facade, discussion on the colors, and the preference, as our applicant noted, for the skylights to be removed. And so the committee did recommend the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness with conditions stating the sides and rear windows were appropriate, and then the front-facing windows should be done with an aluminum clad wood or fiberglass to match the original mutton pattern in a tan color, just a not white color. Removing skylights on the front, and to work with staff on colors, and a preference or recommendation to keep the current olive color tone or sage color pattern. And so a few colors were sent to the applicant as a follow-up for that palette.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff largely agrees with the local committee. We'd like to see that cottage style sash return to the first floor on the front facade. And, ideally the grids would be removed from the windows, as it does not appear that this originally had grids in the upper and lower sash. I think we feel there's a bit more room for flexibility on the skylights. The back of the house is always more ideal, but they're clearly a modern intrusion. They're not going to confuse history, technically reversible. So I think there's some room for flexibility there. As Jessica mentioned, we already sent out color recommendations. We're happy to work with the applicant on final color selections. I think between a tan and vinyl window, it would come down to what the final color scheme was, which would look better. So, staff is happy to navigate that with the applicant. And we have no issues with the roof replacement.
Thank you. Then we will open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. I'll just start off one clarifying question. I'm sorry if I didn't catch that. The windows are obviously been replaced. Is the roof installed also?
Correct.
And the paint, has it been done?
No,
Or the paint has not been
Has
done?
not been done.
Okay, so thank you. That helps me understand. All right, then I'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Mr. Strickland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question about the roof. What was the original color of the roof? Does the replacement kind of match the original color? And how will that color coordinate with the requested sage colored body color for the siding?
The original color was light red, I want to say, or orange. If we can scroll up, we can see it. And yeah, tan, not even, yeah, kind of tan clay color. We actually just wanted to match the couple of the houses around us, and most, if not all of them, have dark color roofs. And also, I'm not sure if these asphalt shingles that were on this house were original. Like, I think they were replaced about 30, 40 years ago. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I would suspect that roof is not an original roof, obviously. It's not slate, so it's not original. All right, I just wanted to make sure that the darker color asphalt, so it's a dimensional shingle that was used, not a 3-tab. Right, that's fine. So that should coordinate with the sage color. And I agree that the windows on the front facade, if they were originally cottage style windows, 60/40 windows, whatever they were, that's what should be. The replacement should follow that configuration, and with an appropriate material other than vinyl.
yeah, there are nine windows in total in the facade of the house. There is another 2 next to the doors that were not replaced.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Strickland. Other questions and comments from the commission? I guess I'll go. I would align with staff's comments that I think the vinyl is acceptable on the sides and rear, but the front windows need to be an upgraded material, either a fiberglass or a aluminum clad wood, with the appropriate cottage style to match what was originally there. I don't also have an issue with the skylights either, and I'm very comfortable with finalizing the colors with staff to identify the paint colors for the house and finalize the paint colors. So that is my feedback. So I'm in support of the project with those requirements.
No problem.
Other questions and comments from the commission? Any additional questions or comments? If not, would someone like to put forward a motion? Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one brief comment. I'm not aligned with retaining the skylights. I agree with the local design review. I think it would just not be a consistent look with the rest of the street. I'm in agreement with changing the windows to make sure that they are consistent with what's there now, and working with staff on the color. But the skylights, I think that would be an unwelcome addition to the streetscape. So those are my comments.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Any additional questions or comments? Would someone like to put forward a motion? Mr. Strickland?
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. I will move to approve the project with a stipulation that the windows on the front facade be removed and replaced with a upgraded material, either fiberglass or aluminum clad wood, to match what's described as a cottage style configuration, to match the original profiles of the original windows, and allow the retention of the newly installed skylights, recognizing that it's a reversible feature, and allow for the applicant to provide color samples for the field and trim color to be approved by the staff.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you. We have a second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Musson, will you please call roll?
All right, Ms. Anderson?
No.
Mr. Dreyer?
Yes.
Mr. Dulick?
Yes.
Interim Director Fields?
Yes.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lozier?
Yes.
Mr. Sambry?
Yes.
Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
Mr. Trasick? And Ms. Trott?
Yes.
All right, Madam Chair, the motion passes by a vote of 9-1.
All right. Thank you. So you are approved with those conditions. Please work with staff on the final colors and then materials for those windows.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, please.
All right, thank you. We'll then move on to our next applicant, the West Side Market located at West 24th Place, utility yard fence and screening.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I need to recuse myself from this one
All right, thank you,
I'll
Mr.
go
Lozier.
offline. Yep.
Madam Chair, was there another recusal? I think there was last time. I just want to make sure before we kick off.
Anyone else?
I can't think of anyone else that would need to
Okay.
recuse. Yeah, I know at the local level, we had a few recusals on this one as well.
Okay. Maybe I'm getting
All right, then
confused. Thanks.
you're good to begin.
Thank you. I'm Amy Haney with DLR Group. We're the designers and architects on this project, along with RPMI. This utility fence is coming as part of the overall renovation and addition for the West Side Market. However, it is just really the first kind of phase to go in an effort to make the market more resilient for its tenants and make the market more comfortable for guests. We are adding HVAC and 2 generators to the systems of the market, and along with those comes a lot of large equipment. So you can go to the next page here so we can get into where this is located. So this utility yard has historically been used as a trash enclosure location, dumpster location, and compactor location for the market. It's always been located in that parking lot and the parking lot is owned by the city of Cleveland and is being leased in a lease agreement to the West Side Market. So the Cleveland Public Market Corporation is owning or is operating this public parking lot, which this utility yard is located in. It is just north of that North Arcade across what is called Market Avenue, which is an alley. It's not really a dedicated right of way. And then West 24th Street or West 24th Place is right behind it. So that Market Avenue is the existing non-conforming fire access. We are not changing that, and we are not changing the configuration of West 24th Place. And we did go over this with the fire department, and they have given a thumbs up that this works for their access. We'll go to the next page. So this is the current conditions of the area. Top left, you are looking westward. That transformer pole is staying. There is a light pole that is just going to be moved a little bit to the east. On the right side there, you can see it, how it is relating to the market. The bollards will be moved, but those bollards will be there so that trucks can't come from the turnaround at West 24th and go into that parking lot. The parking lot is secured with camera access at this time. Bottom left gets a little bit closer to see, looking west, and then the bottom right is really looking straight at the area where this kind of new utility yard would be. We can go to the next page. So diving in a little bit closer to see the layout and dimensions, there is an existing generator there right now that is remaining. And then if you go to the next page, we can get into what is actually going in here. So that existing generator is bottom left. We are adding 2 chiller units to the north of that. Our utility transformer is just to the right. And then the 2 new generators, which will make the market extremely resilient and able to operate and keep all of our product cold, and refrigerators and freezers operating in a power outage, and along with emergency lighting and all of the lighting for the event space. So it's really a big investment that the market is putting in, and it's pretty amazing. The distribution panel is next to that for the generators. And then you can see the layout of the open fencing is to the north and to the west. The chiller units do need open air ventilation. But then to the south and to the east, we are proposing a solid CMU wall to reduce kind of the vision from the North Arcade, which will be a food hall, into that yard, and then also from the parking lot, so you're not looking right into that utility yard. That CMU wall, we are planning on putting public art murals on the wall, but we're not recommending we're not going in for approval for that artwork at this time. So this application is just for the wall itself, but that is why that it is all flat. And we can get into that in a minute. Next page. So here's the elevation. We are proposing an 8-foot fence. It did come up at design review whether we need a variance for this, and I have been digging, and I don't know if we're sure on what this is actually zoned. The other parking lot, I'm positive, is zoned for industry or light industry, I think, and it allows a 10-foot fence. But there are multiple overlays on this, so I'm not clear if we need a variance, but the 8-foot fence is what we are recommended due to the vision and the sound requirements for this. We are not able to block out the sound completely, but the 8-foot fence does take it down a few decibels to make it more comfortable to walk by. You can go to the next page. You can see that CMU wall, which is facing the arcade, which is reserved for the public mural, and then the open metal fence around the chillers. Next page. So here's how it would look from that parking lot. You can see the mixture of that solid fence and then the open fence next to the chillers. On the plan, we did show removable bollards that would be around the parking lot there. We just are not showing them in the rendering, but the fence would be protected by bollards from the vehicles that are operating around it. Next page. This is looking down 24th Place at the open metal fence. Again, there would be bollards all around there to guard it from the vehicles. Next page. This is looking down that alley next to the arcade, and to the right there would be the murals on the CMU wall. We are recommending 2 courses of split face CMU at the bottom to really frame out the mural, and so that as you can see here in the rendering or in the photo montage, there will be snow packed up next to it, shovels going by it. So it's really to protect the artwork that will be there in the future. Next page. We are looking down to get a sense of scale here. When you're right next to the fence, you shouldn't be able to see the equipment behind it, but if you go further away, obviously you would. Next page. These are the materials that we're proposing: a black metal fence around the chillers, and then the CMU wall with the 2 courses of the split face, and then the CMU cap above in a beige color to match the kind of warm paint on the arcades. I think that's all we've got.
Great, thank you for the presentation. Then we'll move on to Design Review Advisory Committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was seen before the Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee at their January 16th meeting. There's a lot of discussion about decibel levels and noise that might be created from the chillers, the height of the wall, the materiality of the wall. Ultimately, all of the concerns of the committee were assuaged, and they recommended the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness without any conditions.
All right, thank you. And Landmark staff recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff is in agreement with the local committee and their support of this project, noting that makes sense for the utility yard to be located in that spot, and with the approvals given for that leased property, then yeah, look forward to seeing future work and future mural in that space.
Thank you. Then we'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Mr. Sandberry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My personal preference and opinion, I think the location's great, the size is great, materials I have no issue with. My only question is the color of the masonry unit itself. I understand that you're picking a color that matches the paint on the arcade. My personal preference would be to match the masonry of the arcade, just because the paint could change over time. And I do understand that a portion of the wall will be painted with a mural, but the cap and the base will still be visible. I think to make it a more cohesive visual look, the masonry units should probably match closer to the masonry of the arcade. So that would be my only suggestion. It's not a requirement, but a suggestion.
Thank you, Mr. Sandberry. Other questions and comments from the commission? Yes, I'll ask mine just for clarification. Will the mural be on all sides of the masonry or just the side facing the market itself?
I can let Rosemary chime in here, but I think that it's our intention to do it on all of the masonry.
Yeah, Rosemary Moudry here, Executive Director of CPMC. Yeah, our intention is to put artwork on all sides that have masonry.
Okay, that's helpful. And this is just a very, it's impactful this is impacting how the public circulates into the market. Have you looked at how you may reconfigure the adjacent parking spots? Because right now it feels like the handicapped, this space was always used as a circulation space in and out of the market when people, which is very often, are parked in those handicapped spaces. Have you explored relocating any of those handicapped to really allow a more inviting access to the for the public to the corner of the market?
So if you could go back to the plan there. Yes, we did locate more accessible spaces adjacent to that. It's kind of plaza, I would say, right there. And then there is enough walking space all around the utility yard. Those are 6 foot, like a 6 foot sidewalk around it, so that you can get off of the parking lot onto kind of a sidewalk and then get into this alley. It is the hope of the Public Market Corporation, and I think the city, that alley would be pedestrian only. Currently, there are kind of temporary bollards or stanchions to discourage people from driving down that alley, but I think that they are supportive of making it a pedestrian alley so that you could walk to the entrance at either end of the arcade or to that corner that is in between both parking lots. Rosemary, I don't know if you want to give any more additional color to that.
Yeah, I guess I would just say, I think if for people who are parking, where that little round plaza area is really the primary entrance. And so I think where the simple answer is yes, we've recaptured all of the handicap spaces, which are only a couple that have been lost because of the utility yard. But I also think sort of having them be located along that sidewalk going to that main plaza, I think will be an easy shot to the entrance. And it also helps with like signage for the parking lot and things like that. That's where parking attendants are. So I think actually there's more support for folks who need additional support by having them and get out of their cars in a more centralized area of the parking lot, and near a true entrance.
Right. No, and I think just the handicap circulation area that's captured between the spaces that turn the corner. I just know if there's a way to really open that up a little bit more so that people can circulate to the true entrances, as you said, where that circle is. Right now, bags, people, cars, I know that area where the utility yard is often where people circulate around to get to their cars in the parking lot. So I just ask you to look at that more to see if there's ways that you can really create a more defined path for people rather than through cars all the time to get to the main entrance. Because I think, it is such a nice entrance into the market itself. And then
That makes sense.
finally, this is just an opinion. Just recently being in Bryant Park in New York City, they also have a utility yard very similar to this on the park for trash and so forth. And they used a mesh with an artificial vines on it to really try to soften the look versus a standard, aluminum fence. So obviously we all know what's behind it, but in the first blush, it's not, you're not seeing it. So just something to consider, the aluminum fence, I can't object to it, but I'd ask you to maybe consider a more upgraded material because it is so hard surfaced back here. Having a little bit of softer, especially with a mural, to allow this to be a piece of art in itself, canvas for, that to bring some of the things like the artwork, maybe some greenery into the space, could be a wonderful addition to the environment you're trying to create back here. So that's my personal opinion. With that, I'll move to Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's an interesting and thoughtful suggestion. I also want to say that I agree with Mr. Sandberry's change of color to match the brick. And, you know, in my ideal world, in keeping with adding some creativity and life to the project by installing a mural over the CMU, I would love to see something more creative done instead of bollards or stanchions. Bollards to me are just visual noise. And, you know, I mean, I understand that's not really the scope of this project, but I think it's something to be considered in the future to try to make these bollards, you know, a little more visually interesting and, you know, create some vibrancy from with them instead of just, you know, like I say, visual noise. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Sandberry?
Sorry, I forgot to take my hand down.
Oh, no problem. All right, any other questions and comments from the commission? Not seeing any. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented with the suggestion of changing the masonry color to match the masonry on the arcade and to soften the fencing around the two edges that have fencing.
Those are recommendations, not requirements, correct? Or, I'm sorry, just to clarify.
Suggestions.
Suggestions. Right, so we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Oh, thank you. We have 2 seconds. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Interim Director Fields,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Sandberry,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Congratulations. We
you.
look forward to seeing your project move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. That concludes our certificates of appropriateness. We'll now move on to our landmark nominations, Cleveland landmark nominations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a very interesting building, but we are coming forward with the nomination for the Old John Marshall High School building. It is located at 15149 Lorraine Road and over the corner of Lorraine and West 152nd Street. The nomination is presented at the request of Ward 17 Councilmember Charles Slife and is a very interesting site. The oldest part of the building dates to 1899, while the newest part of the building was added in 2019. It has had many names, uses, and additions over the 125 plus years that it's existed, which I'll go more into detail. To kind of start us off, we're going way back to Rockport Township. In 1807, Township Number 7, or Range 14, was sold to land developers, and in 1819, the name Rockport Township was coined. Only around 18 families lived in the township at that time, mostly settling along the shores of the lake, along the river, and Detroit Road, which was the main thoroughfare at that time. Lorraine popped up as well, cutting through the middle of the district, or the middle of the township, which still runs through kind of the middle of that area today. And significant stagecoach, rail, and streetcar lines followed along Lorraine, either cutting south at today's Cam's Corners to go to Berea, or continuing west down into Lorraine County. So the modern boundaries for Cleveland, Lakewood, Rocky River, and Fairview Park developed from this township beginning in the mid-1800s. The area that we're focusing on is West Park, and they had the Rockport Special School District, and they had School District Number 1, which was constructed by 1867. There's a long backstory of rural education in the 1800s, where townships were actually able to build their own schools. So high school classes were held on the second floor along with municipal offices in the building that's pictured, and that was their first building. And by 1880, there were 4 primary schools in the general West Park area, but they had no separate secondary schools. So they were just in, upper levels of primary school at that time. The school district, school number 1, eventually became the town hall and the jail until it was damaged in the early 1900s and then replaced, or it was sold and then replaced with a new town hall built around that time, which was later known as the First District Police Station until its demolition in the early 2000s. That space is next to the current fire station on Lorraine for the area. They had a need for a secondary school, and so they called it Central High School, and that was constructed in 1899. So this is the bones of the current building, that is the old John Marshall building. It was a 4-room, 2-story masonry structure built with the popular Victorian and Gothic architectural elements. Cost of the school was around $8,000, which is around $300,000 today. Rockport Special School District did not have a set district architect, but they hired out local firms to design the plans for their buildings. The 1899 school plans could be found at the Cleveland office of E.J. Schellentrager, but it's not clear if his architectural firm, Century Architectural Company, was involved. The firm was well known in the area for residential designs. So that building is still standing. It is squished between a multitude of additions, but it's had changes over time. It's also had multiple names over time, even when it was Rockport Hamlet, Rockport Village, or West Park Township. Central High School, Rockport Village High School, Lincoln High School. Some of those names continued on multiple years. Some were there for maybe 2-3 years tops. And the picture in the top left is view of today. And so you'll see it grow as we kind of go through the history of it. And you can see that there's still changes that have been made to that building. And as it grew, the area grew as well. Rockport Village came in around 1902, and the area actually switched between the names of Rockport and West Park quite a bit between 1900 and 1913. Eventually, they settled on the village of West Park in 1913 and changed the name to West Park High School, or West Park Lincoln High School, or Lincoln High School. It's got a lot of names. Around this time in 1910, they added a rear addition that was in the same style as the original in 1899. So it still has that kind of Victorian and Gothic feel. It was a flat roof instead of a gabled roof. And the design for the rear can be traced to Bonnard and Parson architecture firm, which was not found if they built the original. But they were connected to the addition that was built. They also built they purchased additional land on the rear of the property to expand for future use. And then at this time, around 1915, there were still classes held across the street as well because there were issues with damp in the basement. The village of West Park continued expanding, and then the city of West Park was established in 1921. So William A. Bonnard and Raymond Parson, the architects that are connected to this addition, were principals of the architecture firm Bonnard and Parson. The firm was active between 1905 and 1932 and had offices located in Euclid Avenue in downtown Cleveland. They also designed the replacement town hall, which showed you earlier. Pictured was the replacement, and that was demolished in the early 2000s. They also designed a Cleveland landmark, Fellowship Baptist Church of Christ, or Grace Evangelical Lutheran Church, over on East 55th. That building that church pictured, was landmarked in 1978. So another addition was added to the school when it became the city of West Park in 1921. And this addition was added a little bit earlier in 1916, but it changed the name to West Park High School. At this point, graduate levels hit double digits for the first time in the school's history. Before that, it was like 1 or 2, maybe 5 kids graduating a year. Now they had double digits, a bigger school. You can see the addition was also in a completely different style. It's more classical. You've got rounded windows, pediment entry, and a bell tower. And this school was also done around the same time as a separate gym and covered walkway to the rear of the property. So even with these additions, the school didn't have enough space as the population grew considerably in the early 1900s. And so they started adding portable classrooms to the rear of the property. The gym came in 1919, and then they had a portable to the west of the gym, and then added an assortment more. Portable classrooms were only intended to be temporary, but ended up remaining on the site for another decade. They had, with the gym, an athletic field in the back. They lost that athletic field, and then the students at the time when they lost that to the portable classrooms walked down the street about a half mile to Washington Elementary School, which was built in 1921 to use the John Marshall Field behind there, the field grandstands and everything. Moving ahead, the city of West Park was annexed into the city of Cleveland in 1923, and West Park High School became John Marshall High School, which fit the naming tradition of Cleveland schools. The central bell tower was removed at this time, and exterior fire alarm boxes were added and a new roof put on. They also changed around some of the windows. New openings were added to the previous ones. Additional fire escapes were added to the already existing fire escapes. And they added a library to the building for the first time in one of the front corner rooms. 2 years later, that library was removed to add more space to the school, and the students walked down the street to the West Park Branch Library down Lorraine, which was completed in 1928. So, as noted, school is very crowded. Continued growth meant that even more portable classrooms were added. One source said that about 12 were on the property at its highest. And there's a lot of letters and articles that were written about overcrowding the site, fire hazards, found small hallways, wooden stairs, poorly insulated portable classrooms. And so the image pictured with all the children squished into a stairwell was used as a way to say that they needed a new school, coming not that many years after the Collinwood school fire. Today would be seen in poor taste, but at that time, that was part of that kind of, everybody wanted a new school on the property. And so the long-awaited new high school was announced in 1929 to be located on West 140th. That high school, John Marshall High School, was finished in 1930, or ground broke in 1930, opened in 1932, designed by George M. Hopkinson. Graduate numbers hit triple digits for the first time in 1932 when the new school opened. And that high school, John Marshall High School, is designated a Cleveland Landmark 2005, and then demolished in 2013 for the construction of the new John Marshall campus, which was completed in 2015. Our building was now, at that time, known as Old John Marshall, and that's a name that stuck with it for many decades after that. It was officially closed in 1932 with the majority of the portable classrooms removed or demolished over the next decade. There's an article, which there are pictures from that article, of an auction on the site to sell those portable classrooms. They were going for about $150 to $200. Today it'd be around $4,000. Different ideas for the site have been kind of proposed. There was war housing, an elementary school, a junior high, community space. Some people just said it should be torn down. And so eventually what happened is the West Park YMCA used the property. Now, there were already popular like High Y clubs and Friendship Y WCA clubs around 1922 when it was West Park High School. And the West Park YMCA was formally organized on that property in the late 1930s, and they used the separate gym and cafeteria buildings on the school site. The Cleveland Board of Education didn't charge the Y for use of the property, just saying that when we need it, we will take it back. And eventually they sold it to the YMCA in 1944. Now, the Y originally had plans to renovate the school building, but instead decided to sell the property to help fund the development and construction of their new building, which was just down Lorraine at Lorraine and Triscuit. That building was dedicated in 1957, expanded in 1963 to the building that you see today. The building had new life that came in 1946 after the Y was transitioning away from that property. And it came in the form of Leopold Brothers Furniture. Now, Leopold's Fine Furnishings, they've kept a few different names there. That store began in 1859 with Henry Leopold establishing his first store at Lorraine and West 33rd. He made furniture for Cleveland shipbuilders, homes, businesses, and he also made caskets. He stayed in that between 30th and Fulton on Lorraine. He stayed in that area for many decades, and in 1906 was actually deemed the largest furniture store in Cleveland, which they used in a lot of advertising after that. The family business eventually decided to move further west, and so they used this old John Marshall building, eventually purchased it in the 1940s. And what's interesting is they kept the high school classrooms in place to create a more interesting and unique shopping experience for their clients. Now, as times changed, the back of the property didn't have as much focus. And so down west from 52nd, you had all of the portable buildings were removed, and all you had left was the gym and the old cafeteria building that was offices. Eventually, that was demolished as well. And so there was a lot split with separate zoning between the original school building and the gym property to have, more retail in the front and then residential in the back. And eventually there were new apartment buildings built in the 1960s in those spaces to kind of use up that space once again. So now there's 4 apartment buildings there on down west 152nd instead of, open area. So with the loss of the rear of the property, Leopold Brothers Furniture wanted to expand, and so they added an addition in the front that coincided around the same time as the apartment buildings were being built. The addition was around 5,000 square feet, and they also added additional parking in the front along Lorraine. And so really focused and pulled that towards Lorraine in the 1960s. Now, as the brand and business expanded, Leopold's opened a second location in Brecksville in 1973. And in 1986, they closed the Cleveland store to focus on their Brecksville location, which is still in use today. And they are still family owned and operated. And they sold the site to Bill Lake Buick in 1985. So between the 80s all the way up to the 2010s, the site was used for car sales, sometimes used as auxiliary parking or auxiliary car lot for the dealership across the street. And so there's used by Bill Lake Buick, which was located along Lorraine, or Ganley Dodge West. And a lot of it was just parking. Any of the grassy areas were now just parking areas. The building itself became boarded, overgrown with ivy, and kind of left. New owners came in around 2013 and opened the glass block headquarters. They replaced windows, introduced glass block in many of the original window openings, and began to do gradual maintenance and upkeep on the building. 2019, they rebranded and turned it into the Wash House and Cafe, and reopened it to have that use in the building. The back of the property was discussed as possible lofts, but eventually it is now office space and what appears to be short-term rentals. Now, an addition was added in 2019 off to the side on the 1961 addition. And so that's the most recent change to the property, was that little extra addition in the front. So Old John Marshall High School building could be nominated on the criteria that it exemplifies the heritage of Cleveland and West Park in particular, and the location of the building represents a familiar and long-standing feature of the neighborhood. The school additions are representative of typical institutional architecture at the time, and its most recent large addition was constructed in the 1960s and representative of a shift to a more car-focused architecture. It would be great to see how the interior has changed and developed, and if there's still elements of its wide-ranging history inside. And you can see the gradual additions that were added over time and the different window changes that were made. The additional windows added to the west side of the building that's pictured were added at some point after 1916, and the extended windows that were once doors for fire escapes were added at various points throughout its history while it was still a school. The building itself is significant as one of the last remaining municipal or educational buildings that predates annexation and predates the city of West Park. Original school building is still present between the later additions and was built when the area was just Rockport Hamlet. The development and growth of the school buildings, studying the growth and development of that corner of Cleveland that we know as West Park Cam's Corners neighborhood, and the symmetry of the building and documentation showing original or the earlier appearance of the building, it could be an ideal restoration project in the future or continue to develop as the needs for the community may change over the next 126 years. So the old John Marshall High School building may not appear at first glance to hold as much history. It's a very interesting building. As someone who has lived over in that area for many years at this point and drives past it quite often, it's always been very interesting and nice to do this research on the property. But that's what we're bringing up for nomination. And are there any questions?
New mics. Thank you for the presentation, the detailed background. It's really interesting. I also drive past this building and never knew how deep it was. I will open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments.
Madam Chair, before the commission chimes in, our esteemed councilman from Ward 17 is here. I don't know if he wanted to make any comments or. No?
I think the presentation is pretty thorough. We have a pretty kind of a lack of landmarks on the far west side. So I've worked with the Landmarks Commission to try to find opportunities to our own history. So obviously one building that holds a lot of the neighborhood history, and there's going to be a couple others coming down the pipe hopefully as well.
Thank you, Councilman. Then we'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Yes.
I support this because both my sons graduated from John Marshall. And I was also a volunteer parent when they had PTA in the school system at that time. And I stayed in John Marshall just as much as I could, and was very happy and pleased with the school system at that time, which was excellent, which John Marshall was one of the magnet schools at that time where both my sons went. My sons are 9 years apart. And from one point to that point, they both had the best educational system at that time, and they loved the school. I did too. So just to say the least, I support this school to become a landmark.
Excellent. Thank you.
Welcome.
Other questions and comments? I mean, as stated earlier, I think this is a great nomination. I think it's a hidden gem, and it does give the opportunity for this area of the city to learn how deep its history is. So I am in support of the nomination also. Other questions and comments from the commission? Or would someone like to put forward a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, thank you. We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second? All right, we have a second.
Yes.
Any further discussion? No? Not seeing any. Mr. Messing, please call roll.
All right, and just for clarification, approve in this case means to nominate it as a landmark as you guys to move it forward. Okay. Just wanted to have that on record. Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Dryer?
Yes.
Mr. Dilick?
Yes.
And Director Fields?
Yes.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lozier? Chris, did you say yes?
Yes, sorry. I think I was double muted.
Mr. Sandbury?
Yes.
And Ms. Trott?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Well, congratulations. That concludes then our Cleveland Landmark nominations. We'll move on to administrative reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to note that we do have a site visit this Friday at 11:30, the old Bonwit Teller Building at 2742 Van Aken. We have a demo request coming before us in the near future. So as part of our process, scheduling the site visit for that for you guys and the local design review committee. Also just wanted to note that there's been some turnover over the last year in our design review advisory committees. I guess most notably, Eric Fabian is stepping down as the vice chair of the Historic West Cleveland Committee. And so I'd like to thank him for all his years of service. And the new vice chair out there is Claire Bank. They elected at last week's meeting. But if any of you know anyone who'd be interested in serving on the committees, we've got a few people on a list that I need to follow up with. But if there are other people that you can think of that would be interested, please pass on their information to us. And then also just wanted to note the Barb Powers down at the Ohio Historic Preservation Office, who's headed the survey and nomination section down there for longer than I can remember, is retiring. And Mary Ogle will be taking over position. So we just wanted to say congratulations to Barb.
Excellent. Thank you for bringing that forward. Any questions or comments related to the administrative reports? If not, then we will adjourn today's meeting and see everyone again in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Oh.
everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.
There you go.